One thing I wanted to do was, before we go to Brookwood, is ask about your parents and your grandparents and what you know about your great-grandparents, if you know anything.
Yes.
Well, where was your dad born, do you know?
Dad was born at Tedburn, near Exeter, about 10 miles from Exeter.
And do you know when he was born?
Yeah, 1866.
Oh, you remember all this?
Yeah.
And he was well, how many were in his family, do you know?
9. He was the 8th. 6 boys.
And 3 girls, then, right?
Yeah, 3 girls. One was born, died in infancy. One died a young woman when she got married in her 20s or 30s. Another lived to old age, 70 or 80.
And what about his brothers?
One brother died early in life when he was about 50 from a heart attack. He was running to catch a train. All the others lived in their 70s and 80s.
So what was his name? Your dad's name?
Mark.
Did he have a middle name?
No. And his dad, my grandfather, died before I was born at age 55. He started to drink at 50 and he's dead at 55.
Was it because of drinking?
That's why the implication was that. I don't know.
And are those the grandparents you lived with?
No.
It wasn't. It was your mother's parents.
Mother's parents.
What about your grandmother then, on your father's side?
Yes, she lived, I think she died in 1899 or 1900.
Okay, what was your grandfather's name? Do you know?
I don't know. My grandmother's maiden name was Preston.
Your grandmother's maiden name?
Yeah.
Preston?
On my father's side, yeah, Preston.
Preston?
Yeah.
Just in case I ever want to trace all this back, I gotta get this right.
Yes.
Well,
now, they must have had a lot of activity at that home in Tedburn, because all those boys learnt how to handle machinery for that time and carpentry work. They could make a wooden barrel in a day and a half, for instance. And they cut the wood in the trees, and of course season it beforehand, and by certain wood, making those bow things, you know, and
yeah.
Of course they had to pay for the hoops, the steel hoops going over, but they reckoned a day and a half they'd make a barrel. And then they learnt music too. Some of them could play violin and some piano, the boys.
Well, how did you know? Did you see these people? Or
No, my dad talked about them.
Oh, but you didn't see them very much?
No.
His brothers and sisters?
No. And my dad could play the piano and play the violin.
But I mean, well, your dad wasn't really close with his family after you, when you were born?
No.
And stuff?
We didn't visit very often.
But they weren't too far away, were they?
No.
But your grandfather died before you were born?
Oh, yes.
And your grandmother did too?
Yeah, a year before or something like that.
Yeah. What did she die of, do you know?
I don't know.
Of course, your grandfather's name was Shilston.
Yes.
Grandmother's maiden name was Preston.
She must have died, she must have died when she was 77 or 78.
Well, then, and your grandfather had been dead for a long time then.
Yeah. Then there's
what did your grandfather do? Do you know?
Farmer.
Farmer?
Yeah.
Of what? Do you know what he farmed?
Oh, mixed farming.
I mean, livestock and crops, you mean?
He raised grain and root crops and had cows and milk cows, had pigs.
Do you know anything about that family beyond your grandparents then?
Beyond that, no.
How old was it when your father, when he died?
My father?
Yeah.
86.
And when was that, do you know?
1952.
How old, and what was your mother's maiden name? Or what was your mother's name?
Agnes Sarah
And what was her last name?
Rice.
Well, that's how you got Rice then?
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that. And when did she die, and how old was she?
1943, age 75. It was soon after the roof was blown off our home in World War II.
What do you mean the roof was blown out?
Well, they,
From bombs, you mean?
yeah,
or something?
bombing.
From your mother's house?
Where my parents lived, yeah.
The same house that you were brought up in?
No, this was another home that they retired to.
Where was this?
In Honiton Clyst.
Oh, here where we get my name from, right?
Yeah,
Now, is that a town, Honiton Clyst?
yeah, a village.
Well, what's this about a river? I thought I was
The
named
Clyst River runs through.
The
C-L-Y-S-T, Clyst River.
Oh, okay. Does that go into the ocean?
Yeah, I don't know whether it runs into the River X or runs to the ocean. Either one. It's only about 9 or 10 miles from the English Channel or the south coast.
You never lived with them when they were there. How long were they there in Honiton Clyst? Do you know? When did they move there?
They moved there about 1935 or 36. I think.
Okay, the roof was blown off from the war.
Yeah. So a bomb blast. It didn't hit it directly, but
And she died soon after that?
yeah, about a year after.
And did they fix the house?
Yes.
And then your dad lived there alone? He didn't remarry or anything?
Yes, he lived there alone. He had a housekeeper. Yeah, he had a housekeeper.
When was the last time you saw your mother and your dad?
1938.
And that's when you were back on a visit?
Yes.
Well, when was this when she sent me this locket? That was from Africa?
No, that was, I don't know where it came from originally, but they sent it from, I suppose, they had it in their jewel box at home. I don't know where it originally came from.
Oh, I see. Okay. I had the idea. I thought one of you guys told me it came from Africa.
It might have done. I've forgotten now.
That's what you said.
What did your mother die of?
I don't know.
Cancer, Frank.
What?
Cancer.
Cancer with it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't
Your
know.
sister knew about it.
Cancer?
Yeah.
Of
I don't
what?
know where.
What about your dad?
He died of old age, I suppose.
He had TB before,
Yeah, twice in his life.
but otherwise he was healthy?
Yes.
What about your mother?
She always seemed to be healthy, and she was always have a feeling that Dad would die much earlier than she would.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she said she had to look after Dad very, very carefully.
Why, she looked after him?
Well, I mean, she had to see that he didn't get, in stressful situation like getting wet through and having dry clothes and so on. So it was very rainy in the area where we lived.
Yeah, so she was always after him, you mean?
Yeah, she was, well, I know about after him, but she saw to it that things got done, that he wouldn't expose himself too much.
You don't know how your grandmother died then, you said. Is that right?
No, not my father's mother. No.
Okay, what about your mother's parents? That was the ones you lived with.
Yes.
And what was their what was their name? Maiden name?
Rice? William Rice and Mary Rice. Her maiden name was Hammett.
H?
H-A-M-M-E-T. 2 T's, I think.
And how many children did they have?
Two daughters.
And what happened to your mother's sister then? Did she live long or what?
She lived to be in her 70s.
Yeah, and your mother, what did she do before she got married then? You said?
Well, one job she had, worked in a post office.
Yeah.
I don't know what if she had any other job or not.
She got married in her 30s then, was it? You said? Or
They got
30?
married in 1897. She would have been 31. No, 29 she would have been. 29.
What did William Rice do then?
William,
Rice.
he was a signalman on the railroad.
And that's what he did when you were living with them?
Yes.
And what did
Until he retired when I lived. He had retired then when I lived.
And you were just doing odd jobs for him, is that it?
He didn't have to work anything. He did some odd jobs like
Yeah, but what did you do for them?
I didn't do anything.
Oh, you lived with them and worked for a farmer?
Yeah, work for a house where the people.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mary Hammett, your grandmother then.
Yeah.
What did she have any jobs or that you know of?
No, not as far as I know.
And
Well, she worked in a farmhouse, I think, one time.
And when do you know when they died and what they died of? Or?
Yeah, she Mary died in 1922, I think.
Yeah.
She was aged about 79, I think, at that time.
And do you know why?
No, she got crippled. Her organs didn't function too well.
And what about your grandfather?
He died aged 83 in 1927.
And what of? What was that?
I don't know what the general deterioration, I think. Shortly before that, he'd been knocked down by a cyclist. Not enough to be taken to a doctor, but he suffered some for a little while.
Mm. Well, you come from a family of people that lived long. I mean, back in those days, like your grandfather, there wasn't too many people that lived to be 83, was there?
No. Although, though the people who reached the age of 70 in those days, or over 60, they would live a longer time than what we do now.
Oh.
But they, of course, the age of demise then was lower because of so many childhood diseases. See, diphtheria, whooping cough, and all that kind of thing, which young people, children died of, which brought the age down quite a bit. Average age of death.
What do you remember about your grandparents? What kind of people were they?
They were ordinary, well-to-do not well-to-do, but well-intentioned citizens, interested in community welfare and taking part in things in the community. My grandfather, after he retired, was a caretaker of the Community Institute, where it was open every day in the wintertime, where people could go and read newspapers, and where young men could go at night, or older men, as far as that goes, where they'd play bagatelle and cards and things like that.
What's bagatelle?
Something like billiards.
Oh, pool.
Yeah. and I learned to play bagatelle quite well.
With him?
Well, with other young men.
Didn't the girls go into these places?
Usually not at night. It's usually for men.
Uh-oh. I bet you it isn't that way anymore over there. Well, did you ever see your mother's sister much then?
Oh, about once a year or once every 2 years.
But you never were really close with any of this family except your
I
grandparents.
stayed a month with them. With
Except your grandparents then, these grandparents. Were the only ones that you were really close to?
Yes. With my mother's sister, I stayed a month once with her and her husband at Weybridge near London, where the first air terminal was, and where they carried out these tests with airplanes at that time. There were very few airplanes in 1911, but I remember going over and looking at the airplanes and how they were testing them and running up hills on the ground and that kind of thing.
As far as now, people in your family, the only one that had children was Harry, is that right? And Olive?
Yes.
And Harry had...
One child.
And that was Anne?
Yes.
And this Sylvia was from his wife?
Yeah, his wife's former husband who had died.
What was his wife's name who died? Do you remember? So Anne is she married? She has married now.
I think so.
Mom was saying that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what her last name is?
Do you remember, Mum?
No.
I don't.
No, I don't.
Well, it must be somewhere around here, right?
Yeah, I imagine.
You don't write her anymore now?
Not Anne, not his daughter. No, she never writes to me. I never write to her, but I write to Sylvia every year.
And what's her last name is what?
Sylvia O'Brien.
O'Brien. O-B-R...
R-E-N.
I-E-N? Okay. She's married, did you say?
Yes, and she has a child.
And where does she live?
She lives near Exton, a place called Pinhole.
Pinhole?
P-I-N-H-O-E.
How old is her child? About
3 or 4 years old now, I think.
And she is younger than me?
Younger than what?
Is she younger than me? Sylvia?
Yes, yeah. I think so. Yeah, I'm sure she is.
Anne is how old?
See. 66. 15 years ago. She was about 15. She's about 28 or 30.
Well, then Sylvia's got to be older than Anne.
Yes. About 5 years, I imagine.
So she's about 35 maybe.
Yeah.
Well, then Olive is the only other one that had children.
Yes.
And she had Roy.
That's
Is that
right.
the only one?
Yeah.
Do you know why they only had one child?
She had a rough time. And her husband said she wouldn't have any more children.
And he's Roy's 46, Mom figures, right, Mom?
Yeah, he's 46.
And Anne is his wife. And
Roy?
Roy's wife is who? Isn't her name Anne?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And what's her children's name?
Mark and Allison and Mark.
And their last name is
Richards.
Richards. Okay, I forgot. I shouldn't. I've got it. So, the only relatives you have left are Olive and Anne and Roy and his family.
Yes.
And Olive is how old now?
Born in 1910, I'd make her 71 this October.
Well, she's still pretty young, I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, her husband must have died when he was in his 60s then.
Yes.
What was it he died of?
I don't know what his complaint was. It became, it was a general breakdown. I don't know whether they gave it any name or not.
Now, do you have cousins living or anything that would be your dad's brothers?
Yeah, lots
kids?
of them. Lots of them. And my father's oldest brother had 9 children. His second brother had 9 children. His third brother had 9 children. His fourth brother had 7 children, I think. Then my dad was the fifth brother. He had 5, and the youngest brother had 4.
You never saw these people though.
Not very many of them. A few of them.
Well, does Roy see any of these people?
I don't think so.
Or Olive? She doesn't
No.
see them. Do you remember his brothers' names? Mark, your dad's brothers'
Yes.
names?
The first brother was Joseph.
Yeah.
The second brother was James. The third brother was Sam. The fourth brother was William. And the youngest brother was Tom.
And they were born in that same village, I take it. Tenborn?
Tedburn? No.
Tenborn?
The children. Oh, his brothers, yes. Yeah.
Well, did they all stay in England and get married and have these kids and all that jazz?
Yeah. Stayed in the same county.
Which was? What's it
Devonshire.
called? Oh, Devonshire. Okay.
We were close to one of those families, that's Sam's family. We often visited with Sam's family that lived about 7 miles away from us.
Well, I understand they have. They have good records in England, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, if I ever wanted to look up somebody, I could go to that county
Yeah.
and find out, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, is Shilston, did you ever meet any other Shilstons that weren't related to you in England?
No.
Because you haven't met a Shilston in America, have you?
No. But we noticed there was one Shilston by that name who was right up in the St. Petersburg paper, was fishing on a bridge on a certain day near Tampa.
There was a Shilston?
Yeah, they didn't indicate his name, so-and-so Shilston. But we couldn't find anything like that in the telephone book.
Because we've never seen
No.
any. And you don't know any other Shilstons.
No.
So, do you know where that name came from?
No. S-T-O-N, of course, is a Old English term for town. And their Shilstons, S-H-E-L-S-T-O-N, may have something to do with shellfish on the sea. I don't know.
Well, evidently, since you were completely English, totally English, your relatives are all English,
That's
I
right.
take it.
Yes.
Do you know anything more about your heritage than what you've said?
No, not how far it goes back beyond my grandparents. No.
Yeah. Well, the English had large everybody must have had large families in those days, huh? I mean, that was...
Well, there were large families in those days, yes. In the 19th centuries, there were. And before that, but of course before that especially. In the 18th...
They didn't all live, I suppose.
No, a large number of them died. especially in the 14, 15, 16, and 1700s.
Yeah. Huh. Well, now, your mother's sister, did she have any, you said she didn't marry? Is that right?
She married.
She had children?
She had 4 children. One died in infancy.
And what was her name? Your mother's sister? Your mother's name was
Agnes.
Rice?
Agnes Sarah Rice.
And her, okay. And her name was what? The sister? Or your aunt?
Sister, she married a Tucker, Tom Tucker.
And what was her name?
I can't think of her name at the moment.
And they had 4 children?
Yes.
Did you ever see them?
Yeah, I visited them, lived with them for a week or a month once.
Oh, that's right.
One died in infancy. One died in a railroad accident. He was a railroad fireman, or trained to be, in his teens. And he got into the firebox and he caught fire. And he was badly burned, and he died within a month.
Well, did they stay in Devonshire County?
No, he went to near London, Weybridge near London.
Weybridge?
Yeah. Weybridge.
W-E-Y?
Yeah,
B-R-I-D-G-E.
yeah.
And you say she's still living? No,
No, she died, and all her children are dead now.
all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, they're all died.
Yes.
Well, the children, did they have children?
Yeah.
I mean, her children have children?
Just one. The third child was Tucker. He had 2 children.
It was a boy.
Yeah, he was a boy. He had a daughter and a son and a daughter. The daughter was a school teacher. And I met her when I was in England last.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and him too, he was living.
But he's dead now.
He didn't know.
Did they have children? Did she have children? The school teacher?
No, he didn't have children.
What about, and then there was another child?
Yeah, there's a boy. I don't know about him. Didn't meet him.
Oh. You met her, how did you meet her?
I went to visit this cousin, her father,
Oh,
and she came there.
oh, I see.
In addition, I was staying at my cousin's or sister of this man, my cousin, nearby.
The sister, oh, a sister of this Tucker?
Yeah, my cousin, it would be my mother's daughter, Tucker. I stayed at their home. She was married at Weybridge.
You mean Tom Tucker?
Yes.
But you said she was alive then? I thought you said she's dead now.
Well, this was her daughter.
Oh, the school teacher.
Yeah. No, the school teacher was the daughter, a granddaughter.
Oh,
of this
I
Tom
see.
Tucker.
Okay.
As I stayed several days with the daughter of the Tuckers
Oh.
and the brother of the
And they didn't
brother
have...
of Percy was his name. Percy was one.
Yeah, but the daughter hadn't had any children.
No,
Oh. Percy was who?
Percy was the name of the son, my cousin, of the Tuckers, Percy Tucker.
That was
And the school teacher was his daughter.
Oh, and the boy was his son.
Yeah.
His name was Percy. You don't remember the school teacher's name?
No, I don't.
And they were all from around Weybridge?
Yes.
Well, how did you get to make connections with staying with him? You,
Well, we always had correspondence over the years. My mother and the two families had corresponded regularly since they were born or left home. We were fairly close to them, the Tuckers.
but as far as you know, Olive doesn't see these people, or does she?
Yeah, the widower of this daughter visited her only last year or the year before in Cornwall.
Oh.
This daughter's husband. Would be Olive's cousin's husband.
And which one had died? And she had died.
Yeah,
This was Tom Tucker's daughter.
that's right.